Hello, everyone. Welcome to We Now Hubs, Women Empowering Women. My guest for today is Adelina Hayden. She's joining me from Malaysia. And Adelina is a Rapid Transformation Therapy coach and a Family Constellation Practitioner. She does a lot of other things. And in her email, I don't understand half of what she does, but I guess she will tell us more about it. So, welcome, Adelina. Thank you for
Hi,
joining us today.
hi Masuma. Thank you for having me. Oh, okay. So my career, okay. I started off working at a very young age. My first job was actually with a casting agency, and then I managed to get a job in a PR consultancy. I had no idea what I was getting myself into,
Okay.
but it was really about working with people, and I was working with media.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to actually learn how to decipher what the client wanted because
Mm.
in the agency, everyone came with different requirements.
Mm.
So, I learned about media relations, crisis management, event management. And as my career progressed, I actually ended up working with a global company.
Mm.
And I was in charge of change management, working with dynamic teams, and I had to deal with a lot of legal matters, IP trademarks. So it was really full on.
Okay, that's a lot of stuff to be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but you also say you are a cultural ethnographer and change management, brand asset protection. I have all this here in front of me.
Yeah.
So, what is a cultural ethnographer?
Okay, ethnographer comes from the root was basically like anthropologists, how they actually observe people in their environments. An ethnographer, for someone like me, the way I'm trained is actually I go into an organization. I don't say anything, but I observe the way people work and the way they communicate, down to even what's not being communicated verbally. I look at the way people send out emails. I look at the way they give written instructions. I even look at how people sit, how they sit in an office, is it an open plan, and how they decorate their desk. What do people put on their desk? Or do people, in fact, don't even have their own table? Do they come in and just, plonk themselves down? I think you find like most organizations these days, sometimes you don't even have a fixed desk.
Okay.
So my job was to actually look into what's spoken, what's written, and even what's not said, and decipher from there what is the culture of the organization. So I basically observe how people observe cultures those days and tribes.
Hmm.
I observe the tribe in their work environment. So
Wow,
that is, yeah, that's what you do as a cultural ethnographer. I look into that.
that's fascinating. I'm hearing this for the first time. Is this something, it's taught? Is it taught in like, is it a course like in college or something?
It was part of my
Different?
master's. When I was doing my master's degree, I had a very interesting lecturer who handled my thesis, and she taught this course. And
Hmm.
it's really about some of the fundamentals of communication, which was a good training ground in what I do today, actually. So I
Hmm.
linked up, and I was actually using those skills that I learned back then in my work today.
Okay, wow, that's fascinating. So, what was your childhood like? How did you come to doing so many things and working in the corporate field in so many different fields? What was your childhood like? How did you grow? Were you a very smart student? You know, did you what did you do in your childhood?
Okay, so I was a very naughty child, but I had a wonderful, childhood. I remember climbing trees, digging up a lot of my mother's plants, and I was just the busybody running around the house, mucking around the kitchen. And I was the youngest, and I think there was a huge age gap between me and my other siblings. So I
Okay.
was really left to my own device to get up to a lot of mischief.
Okay.
And so it was just really quite an enchanting time.
Hmm.
And I remember having a lot of attention from, my siblings and all that. But there were some nuances that I couldn't really put my finger on. There was some weird thing going on. But I was just quite oblivious. I was just really into my whole fantasy land and everything else. And then my whole world came crashing down when I turned 15 years old.
Okay.
So, being a busybody and going around and, mucking around with stuff, somewhere, somehow, I won't go into the details because, we'll never end this
Yeah.
conversation. But I found out that I was adopted. Okay. And then the big shocker was finding out at the age of 15 that, my mom is not my mom. And that was a huge shock to me. And then finding out that my aunt is actually my biological mother, right? So, my whole reality for that moment just, I think, shifted. And a lot of things of what I thought was my reality was like, is this the truth? Is this not the truth? And, so I became very insecure after that, and because of that, what happened was I had to put up a lot of boundaries around me, but I also picked up this habit of being a perfectionist because all of a sudden my beautiful life just shattered. And next thing you know, I felt that I had no ground to stand on. I felt really unstable, like everything was taken away from me. And then after finding out about that when I was 15, there were a few more big other shockers that was revealed to me, you know? And so life turned out to be like one of those freaking like sitcoms, like Dynasty or whatever you call it. And I'm that old, so I remember those kind of silly series. And yeah, so I just became so insecure that I had to be putting up boundaries, and I had to be a perfectionist. I could not afford to have anything go wrong in my life because I was so fearful of life. So that's when my work ethic kicked in, and I always made sure I crossed my T, dots my I's, and I just became a person that really thrived on doing well in my career.
Right. And you are a mother of two.
Yep.
Okay. So tell me about your motherhood and your children.
Oh, right. So now, I know how universe likes to kick your ass, right? So I had this perfect plan because being Miss Perfectionist, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have, two children, blah, blah, blah. So I had my son. So lo and behold, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get all these things sorted. It's gonna be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then suddenly, again, the universe kicked me out my ass, because at the age of 3, um, he was diagnosed with a rare medical condition. Okay, and again, it was like some freaking Hollywood movie because I'm sitting out here thinking, you've got to be kidding me, right? Of all people in the world, first finding out I was adopted, and my aunties, my mother, it's like some super drama. And then next thing you know, the doctor's giving me this diagnosis, and I'm like, no way, right? And then, of course, as a mother, I wanted this whole, perfection thing. My son's going to grow up and this and that. And then I looked at him and I came back and I said, wow, and I cannot believe that he was diagnosed with a very rare medical condition. And there is a probability that I would lose him, right? And so I did what any mother would do. I sat down and just cried and cried and cried. I think I cried for about 8 hours, just, crying and crying. I felt totally crushed because how could this cute little 3-year-old die, So, and I'm smiling and laughing now because, evidently I'm out of the woods and he's perfectly fine. But what happened was, I had to quickly, pull myself together. And then the thing that hit me was, okay, so people can survive cancer. There must be a way to help this kid. And so I started to study about, what can I do? Because at that age, at age 3 or I think he was 3 or 4 when we found out, they wanted to put him on a lifelong thing of steroids. They wanted to give him steroids. And I knew at a
Right.
very young age, giving a child steroid was not a good thing. So I had to work with the immunologist, and then I went down the path of finding about his DNA. I did his DNA profile. I sent his blood off to America, and I worked with some of the best biological doctors. And then I started to look into alternative therapies, and I found out about the wonderful work that doctors do with homeopathy, isopathy, stem cell gurus. And I ended up actually working with a company that with the gurus of stem cell therapy as well. And so, it really helped. But then along the way, I also met some really interesting teachers who taught me some really fantastic modalities. So, in a way, what happened to my son actually led me down this path of really looking at healing modalities. And then
Right.
I started to learn about PSNI, psychoneuroimmunology. how you connect your mind with your body and how people take on certain beliefs that causes illnesses in their body. So that
Right.
was the start, catalyst of how I got into what I am today.
Right. If you don't mind me asking, what was your son diagnosed with? What was the
It was called chronic granulomatous disease. It was basically where his immune system could not fight against viruses and bacteria.
mm-hmm.
So basically, he would consistently fall sick. He was always ending up in hospitals with pneumonia, bronchitis, pneumonia, and then his lungs gets totally filled up. And so at one point, one of his lungs was full, and then the other lungs was beginning to get affected. And the doctor was so afraid that his lungs would collapse. And then a lot of antibiotics at that time, and she was trying to do a combination, and she was so worried that it would not kick in to help him. So it was 2 weeks in hospital was one of the hardest times that we had to go through.
Right. And he's okay now?
Yeah. So it's very interesting that with his journey,
Hmm.
um, what I figure out and what I do today plays a huge role, right? And he's doing phenomenally well. So he is, I would say he's thriving and he is stable. So he's in fact taller than me. He's taller than me. So he's good. He's good.
How old is he now?
13.
Wow, that's so nice. It's so good to know. So, what really helped him? Was it because you went into training in so many healing modalities? What really helped him? How did you? How did your training help you and your son in where you are in life?
Okay. So what happened was one day on the search of looking for people who could help him, I came across Grandmaster Tan, where I learned wellness medical Qigong.
Okay.
And that was just working with the energy fields around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just really shocked when I started to see testimonials of people healing from illnesses, being recovered from it. So I started to practice it, and I use it on the kids, because every time they have a fever, I just have to sweep it away, right? And there were other techniques that I learned as well, breathing techniques, and that sort of like opened my mind to this whole dimension of, oh, okay, you can actually use energy healing and all that. And then I came across pranic healing as well, which is in a way similar but different techniques to be used as well. All very beautiful, and it has its place. And then I realized that, okay, sometimes you can sort of like use your hands and energies to remove certain blockages and help someone. But then it kept coming back to an individual. And I was trying to figure out why. Why? How does this happen? And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I came across RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy. And
Okay.
I discovered that basically it's got to do with our subconscious belief. Okay.
Right.
And sometimes certain people feel that, well, when I'm sick, I get all the attention. And that's why it's, subconsciously, they keep manifesting something or another in their fields. And
Mm-hmm.
always that sickly child or that sickly person. And what do they get? They get the attention, they get the love from mom and dad. So that was really mind blowing, and I've seen cases when this is addressed, the illness goes away and that person didn't really consciously realize what was going on because it was subconscious. It was something that they picked up at a very young age,
Right.
and that most of the time it's from age 0 to 7, the
Right.
formative years when they pick that up.
Right. So, do you work usually with children, or does this therapy work with adults also?
It works with children, but I have to use different techniques. This is especially good for children who have bedwetting, children who are going through anxiety with either something that's going on at home, the family dynamics, or with schools, or kids who change schools and they need to integrate into a new school, exams. And often these days, I find a lot of kids facing bullying, either through social media or in school.
Right.
So somewhere, somehow, there's this feeling that they pick up that they're not good enough, and they compare themselves with peers or celebrities on social media,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly they feel that, I'm just worthless, or I'm never going to amount to something, my grades are not good, and then it's a compounding effect. So yeah, I work nowadays with a lot of kids on that realm.
Right. Uh, there is something you work on which is called the Triage system.
Mm.
What is that?
So triage system actually is used in hospitals. When someone comes into the hospital, straight away the nurse will, quickly do a quick assessment to find out how severe a patient is.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it comes from the word, a French word called trier, which means is to sort out, right? And I normally use this in clients that come to me with complex trauma. So complex
Right.
trauma means that it's one after the other, and then the person sits
Mm.
there. They say, this is it. I'm sick and tired of my life. I amount to nothing and I just want to end it. Or sometimes they're totally shut down. They just like barely are functioning. So the triage
Mm.
system for me that I came up with this whole idea of a triage system is to actually simplify the way I work with someone and try to help my clients understand. So triage meaning tree like a tripod, that's the way I look at it. And the first step
Okay.
is to always stop and pause. Okay? Because when someone is caught into a huge situation, they're like this little thing that's spinning out of control, right? And it feels like everything is out of their control and they just want to end it. It's just too much. And I tell you honestly, in my life, I felt like that before. Even though I smile and laugh about what happened with my son and this and that,
Mm.
it was huge. It was just too much for me to handle. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know where to start, where to end, what to do. So I always tell the clients that come to me, stop, pause, and breathe.
Right.
Okay. The fact that you're still here means you're not
Mm.
ending things, it's not ended, right? Then the second thing I do is I assess. All right. And I look at the situation, and that's what I learned. We're going back to our conversation about the ethnography thing. I
Mm.
look at what's being said, what's not said. And the other
Mm.
modality I learned, Masrina, recently that I graduated in is Family Constellation. And that
Right.
is phenomenal because it gives you an insight into perhaps there is something going on with the family that is not in balance, either
Right.
within the client's family or in her generation, her mom, her grandmother, grandfather. So I actually stopped and I ask myself, what's really going on here? Is it really her? Is it her something that she's taken on for someone? Is it a subconscious belief, right? So I look into that. And then the third thing that I do is I ask the client right now is that, are you ready to do the work to get to where
Mm.
you want to get to?
Right.
So
Mm.
that's the triage system. So we come up with an action plan because normally what happens is that sometimes, and this was me those days, especially with my son, I was just searching in the dark, trying to
Mm.
grab on to whatever I could. But it was not deep, it was just surface, and I was just wasting a lot of time. So I sit down, I work with a client and say, this is what you need to do. And it's really like clearing the debris out
Mm.
first before we can really see what's really going on.
Right. Right. I can imagine what you must have gone through as a mother, because I know as a mother I have gone through a lot of stuff for my child. And yeah, I can. It's commendable that you are here and you're doing so much. And for my viewers, I want to tell you I have seen Adelina in action, especially during Family Constellation, and she's really intuitive. I mean, you're really intuitive. I mean, it's just amazing to see you doing your work. Yeah, I have seen you in action. So people, she's amazing. Just anyways, coming back to your work, you did say that you would like to work more with adults and children than, I mean, young adults and children.
Yeah. I
You,
think it's just so important right now because
yeah.
I see what's going on with my own kids as well. With
Mm.
social media, there is this whole world out there that they really sometimes cannot discern what's true and what's not true. And then they pick up this belief that I need to be like this and therefore I'll be accepted by society. And that's not real. And I want every child to know out there that they are special in their own unique way,
Mm-hmm.
and not to force them into this cookie cutter thing,
Yeah.
because the potential is so vast and so unique.
Mm.
um Imagine if every child wanted to be Gordon Ramsay, the world would be so boring because we have cooks everywhere. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to let people understand that you need to let your children be their unique self.
Mm.
Unfortunately, kids either learn this from their parents or they pick it up from peers, and then somewhere, somehow, they just keep saying, I'm not good enough. And it affects everything. It affects their future relationship, their friendships, their work, because then they'll keep sabotaging themselves of that belief.
Right.
So, yeah, and some parents, I don't blame the parents because, parents themselves are also trying to grapple how to raise a child in today's world as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
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 So, my message out there is right now to let parents know that there is a way to help your kids. If your kids are facing these kind of things, I mean, to see a child suddenly wake up and just go, wow, I get it, I'm special. I mean, that
Mhm.
brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. When would like a parent think that they want to their child needs attention? What signs should they pick up and maybe get in touch with someone like you? What should they look out for?
Well, it's so interesting that you asked this question because kids are so good at hiding it. I had a case where this child, she hid that she was being bullied in school for many years, and the parents only found out when this child left for college, and they found like a diary and letters and all that, and it was
Okay.
really hard, uh, wrenching. I think what's important is especially for moms, to trust your instinct.
Hmm.
It's really not what you see or what you hear. It's that intuition where you just feel something's not right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we all know it, it's just whether we want to act on it or do we think, okay, this is some woo woo shit, right? But basically, I think all of us, moms and dads, have that intuition. So trust your intuition. When you feel that something is just not right, then, look into it. And I think going back, it's really important to have this opportunity to open the avenue for your kids to have conversations with you. No matter how hard that conversation is going to be, parents need to know not to shut their kid down, but to
Mm-hmm.
saying that, look, if you're going to have that conversation and that very tricky conversation, I'm the one that you want to have that conversation with, you know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
that way your kid can come to you with the most devastating things that you think is devastating or they think is devastating, but at least they come to you. And then you're able to say, all right, I'm cool about it. Let's see how we can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, but children these days, even though a lot of parents are becoming aware of, uh, how to raise children in today's world, children are not really cooperative.
Yeah.
They don't really share with their parents, and I guess even when the parents do take them to therapists or counselors or coaches, they're very reluctant to work or do some work on them or open up. So how do you handle children like that or youngsters like that? I mean, they come to you, like you said, they have to be prepared to make the change, but they are in that state of mind where they don't really want to do any work on themselves, or they're in a rebellious. Is there any way you can work with them despite them being like this? Are there any other ways through parents, or uh, you know, how do you work with such children or youngsters?
Okay, what the beautiful thing about family constellation is that as long as the child's below 18 years old, the
Hmm.
parents can come and see me and we can help that child. Because
Right.
the parent has the permission to work and do the work for the child. And
Hmm.
that's the beauty of family constellation. I would take that route straight away if the mom and dad feel that there's something going on and I need to look into it. So
Right.
that's the really beautiful thing about family constellation.
Right. So RTT works only with the person who's going through that. So they
Yeah.
have to do the work for themselves.
Yeah.
But
I hold the space for them. So as long as they just say, look, I have this, I don't know what to do. And I say, are you ready to look at it? And would you give me permission to hold the space for you? That's all you need to do. And then I help them and we walk through it together and I guide them through that process. So
mhm,
that's fairly okay.
yeah. Okay, we've been talking about this, but I would like to go to your healing journey. I know that you have gone through a lot of your healing in the process, where when you were looking for healing for your son, there was a lot of change going on in your life as well. Could you tell us more about that?
Okay, so I think, my whole life, I was actually dealing with a lot of my corporate work, and having this whole
Mm,
stance of everything has to be perfect. And it was what I stood for. That's all I had. I had my kids and I had my work. And I was a very different person back then. I wasn't intuitive, and
mm,
I think I had a really big ego, and I was a very hard person, really hard
okay.
person. It was either black or white. There was no many shades of gray. And then I realized, that even with all that so-called power and ego and whatever, I was still very hurt
Mm,
inside. I was still a very broken child. And only when I started to do the work through Family Constellation, through RTT, that's when I discovered that actually my inner child was just, this really abandoned little girl, and
mm,
everything went back to the whole idea that I was very fearful. I was fearful of the world that I lived in. I was fearful about, whether people would like me for who I am. If I let my guard down, if I was no longer a perfectionist, if I made mistakes, would I still be accepted? And basically, what I found out was that I was doing everything in my life to gain the acceptance and the approval of everybody around. Because,
right.
if I didn't, that would be devastating for me.
Mm,
So, and it also stemmed because I had I won't say little, but this big wound inside me because I was rejected by my birth mom. Okay,
right.
also I thought. Okay, so it was a very complex thing. It was very multi-layered, and only when I started to peel back the layers, that's when I realized, first and foremost, yes, I was given away at birth, but I wasn't rejected. There were so many
Right.
circumstances that she was grappling with. It was not
Mm,
easy for her at that time. Yeah.
mm,
And yeah, even though as a baby, I was like, reaching out for mom and I didn't have her. But now as an adult, I understood. I can see it. I can, empathize and see what was really going on at that time. And
yeah.
then once I knew that I was meant to be here, and I knew that there is still love. And someone who's going through what I'm going through or what I went through, you would see this in family constellation, that there was that love for me in my case. And then I had to learn to grow up. And that was the difficult part, how to be an adult, how to accept the fact that I will screw up from time to time and I'm not perfect, you know, and I will make mistakes.
Mm,
And it also taught me humility as well, how to be humble and know that I'm no bigger than anybody else in this world. Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
I find that very hard to believe. I mean, I'm knowing the Adelina, I know that she was like she's egoistic or, you know, and you're such a wonderful person. You're so mischievous. I really can't imagine you being that way as you describe yourself. I mean, that means you have transformed so much. You have made a conscious effort to change and be the person you are today.
But Masma, this is the funny thing, right? Because I was a perfectionist,
Mm,
never have seen it, people wouldn't know. Because I made it look as though it was just so natural. And that's
mm,
why it's called like the very subtle manipulation where the ego comes in, but
mm,
people wouldn't know. But I was actually doing it because it was a self-defense mechanism. And you wouldn't see it. You would just think, oh yeah, she's nice, she's great, and everything else. But there was hidden agendas after hidden agendas and everything else. I was like this because I just wanted people to like me, accept me, you know? And
mm,
that approval was so important because I had that wound of rejection from that time. And because I went through that and I learned, it was a very painful thing to realize that I was having all that and I had to look at my own shit, lah, basically. And I was like, who likes to look at
mm.
their own shit, right? And it's
Yes.
like, well, I had to deal with it, it was mine. And then when I did that, I felt so liberated. And I discovered how I was really at the end of the day hurting myself. But the beautiful thing is that because I did that and I went through that and I can actually own my own shit, I can see it in other people too. Some people are just absolutely flawless. They smell so beautiful. But then I could see the bullshit behind the bullshit. Lah.
So you're a dangerous person to be around lah, because you will see everybody's bullshit. I'm sure you're picking up on my bullshit as well.
You know, the beautiful part, and we all have the bullshit. And the wonderful thing is that if you can say that you have the bullshit, means that okay, so basically, I think the fact that you can actually say that you've got bullshit means that you know it. And that is the best thing. You know, it's like when someone knows and sees that they have something, you know, then it becomes conscious. And that's the beautiful thing, because then it starts nagging at them and it starts sitting on the peripheral of their mind. And then it starts, you know, like digging away and gnawing away at them. And after a while, what I call, it starts to bubble up to the surface and starts to simmer. And that's when I say it's ripe to be looked at.
Right.
So knowing that you have a bullshit and you know, it's a gift. Actually.
Okay. I just want to tell my viewers that we are facing network problems. So if you all find sudden frozen images, or the conversation just fades away, please bear with us. We're trying to do our best with the network. Anyways, coming back to something you do work with is rules of the mind. You have do some. What is that? I mean, is that some kind of work you do, or is it some concept? What is it?
Okay, rules of the mind is really about how our subconscious mind works. So from the time you're born or conceived in the womb, the subconscious mind starts picking up feelings that the mother is going through. The subconscious mind can pick up on words, conversations, and all these beliefs, all these voices, sounds, and images forms a belief. And
Okay.
this age, from the time you're conceived until about age 7, is a crucial time, because what happens is the child looks at something, looks at the words being said, looks at the image, and this child picks up a belief. Okay?
Right.
So one of the rules of the mind is that whatever you see and the images that you see, it can turn into a belief. And this belief gives you that emotion and it becomes your reality, right? So I'll give you a very good example. When you board a plane and you see this little toddler, right, or these kids, and mom and dad are pretty cool, toddlers have no idea about the fear of flying. They're like, okay, what the hell, I'm just going on the plane. Okay, I eat, sleep, shit, just get that pacifier in the mouth, I'm cool. And then at age 4 or 5 or 6, when they start traveling, with a cool mom and dad, it's like the best thing ever. I love everything. I get food and everything, and I get to sleep. But then some kids look at someone like mom or dad or whoever's with them, and they see this person going, "Oh my God, we're gonna die. I'm in a plane," and they start picking up that fear. And then they pick up this belief that flying is dangerous or
Right.
traveling is dangerous. And the child starts picking up this belief, and it gets reinforced every time the child travels with that person. And then they say, "Okay, flying is dangerous." So how so when you put it together, how come some children don't have it and some kids pick up this belief? Where did this belief come from?
Right.
Right? And the way children see things is very different from an adult mind. So whatever they see is like a blank canvas. Another very interesting case. There is this lady, okay, who wanted to have a relationship and she wanted to have intimacy. But every time the relationship progressed to a point where she was meant to get intimate with her partner, she would sabotage the relationship, no go, and they will break off and what have you. And she couldn't figure out why. But she knew that she started to have this anxiety and she couldn't breathe. She felt like the walls were closing in on her and she felt that it was just too much. She couldn't handle it. She didn't know why. So during the RTT session, when she was regressed, she went back to a time when she was a child. And, she had loving parents, she loved mom and dad and everything else. It so happened that one day she went in to the office, the father's office, and she saw her father watching porn. And she saw that and she saw his face and she felt that it was the most horrible thing that she's ever seen the father, his facial expression and everything else. And she's like, this is so disgusting. And she was mortified, really mortified to see her loving father started, looking at these women, naked women, and everything else. And she just thought that the whole idea of people being naked and all that was just no go. It's a no go situation for her. It became traumatic, you know,
Wow.
because obviously, 7-year-old, you don't expect to see those kind of things, right? It's a loving father, loving mother, and the father was doing this. And so it was a huge discovery for her to realize. And then she went, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me. It was just a belief that I picked up at that age, and it rightfully so. 7-year-olds are not meant to see something like that and discern and say, oh, that's a beautiful thing. So that's why I said, the way the mind that works when you're a child is totally different as an adult. Yeah, so that's the rules of the mind. Okay, so the other
But
one is,
fascinating, yeah, that one incident can make have such an impact.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
it's huge. There was another case where the mother and the son was chased out of the house by the father. The
Mm,
father was very abusive, alcoholic, and
mm,
he asked them to stay a night in the garage, which was very cold. It was in the UK winter time. And
mm.
this boy was so young and he loved his mother a lot. And when he looked out of the window, he could see the father in the house with the heater and warm and everything. He swore that when he grew up, he will never ever have children, ever. He will never want to put his kids through this, because he just felt that it was a horrible thing that his father had done to him and his mother and all that. And then, lo and behold, he grew up, fantastic adult, had a beautiful wife, couldn't have kids. And when the doctors checked, apparently no problems with his sperm count, and a client came for fertility, right? But his sperm was not it was not healthy sperm. You could see through the microscope there was a problem. And he couldn't figure out what was really going on. Why was it like this? So when he came for a session and he was regressed, it turned out it was because, and this goes back to the point I made earlier about psychoneuroimmunology, he told in his mind, I would never want to have children. And then this comes back to another belief. The body will do exactly what you tell it to do. So the mind will do exactly. When the mind was told, never have children, and the brain says, sure, no problem. We will make sure that your reproductive organs will never ever allow you to have kids. And that's what the body did. And in fact,
Right.
after he recovered from that situation, he discovered, yeah, that was not a belief that I need to keep on anymore. His biology
Mm-hmm.
changed. He actually
Wow.
was able, I think about a year and a half, they went back as a couple to the fertility clinic, and they were able to, do things and all that, and they had a child. So he started to produce sperm that was healthy in that sense. And this working with uh, families who have infertility is huge, who are trying for many years, and even when they have the money and they try 2 or 3 times and they cannot, it's very interesting to see where perhaps somewhere somehow they have taken on a belief at a very young age. In fact, there's some women who were told at a very young age not to have sex out of marriage, or your
Mm.
period is dirty, and then they find that they have a lot of problems with the menses, or they do not menstruate regularly. So there's so many things that involves the mind. Yeah.
Right.
So the mind would do. So the other rule is that the mind will do exactly what you tell it to do, and it will do that to protect you because that's what you wanted. So you have to be very, very cognizant of the instructions that you tell your mind. Okay.
Right.
And the important thing is the words that we use, because the words that we use create that belief. It creates that mental image, and then it sticks. So that's
Right.
why I think if you go back to a lot of holy books, in all, I did some research actually when I was giving a talk for cancer patients. In most of the holy books, it tells you about the word, the spoken word, how to be very mindful about the words that we use.
Yeah, that's right. Is there anything that the viewers can do consciously? So in their daily lives, a practice they can use consciously in small ways to
Okay.
change the way they believe or they do things, or some process where they realize that they're doing something. Is
Okay.
there any such way? I mean, can you give a short info on something?
Sure. Okay, so first of all, be very mindful with what you say to yourself. Because the person who's having the biggest, longest conversation with you throughout your entire day and life is yourself. We
Right.
talk to ourselves the most, right?
Right.
It's not even the kids or the husband. And you don't even realize it when you're driving the car and you're going, oh, the grocery shopping, and then the stupid guy in the car next door, and the traffic light, why so like that, da 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 da. Actually, this chatter is the mind going on and on and on.
Right.
So, first thing to do is be very cognizant about your thought because your thought is what you're saying to yourself.
Right.
Okay? Number two is to say out loud to yourself. They call it affirmations. And I don't like that word affirmations. I just don't like to have this grandiose thing. It's actually just say to yourself things like simple. If you're having a really bad day, things are really getting really quite fucked up, just tell yourself, you know what, I'm having a bad day. That's all it is. Some people get really pressured and stressed. Yes, it's stress, it's anxiety, but if you use that word stress and anxiety, it will become stress and anxiety. Just go back and say, I'm having a really bad day, and that's all it is, because it is just that, a bad day, and tomorrow will be better. You know, number one. Number two is to always tell yourself that I have phenomenal coping skills. So no matter how fucked up things can get and how bad it can get, just tell yourself, suddenly something happens, you say, it's okay. Everyone just pause. I have phenomenal coping skills. You can say that to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud
Right.
because when you have phenomenal coping skills, no matter what's being thrown at you, somewhere, somehow, you're able to find a solution. In fact, you might even stop and tell yourself, hey, screw it lah, I'll just deal with this tomorrow. Okay,
Hmm.
because you have that phenomenal scoping skills. So your self-talk. The third one is if you have family and kids and all that, be mindful with what you say to them because they
Hmm.
are picking up and then it will become their own self-talk. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a very simplistic thing, but then the more you practice, then you start to realize that, wow, when you chatter so much, that monkey mind and monkey brain goes. So for me, while I'm like really happy, happy and funny, funny and all that, actually, when I come back home, I really like to be quiet for a while, or some people call it meditation. I just like veg out and just chill out
Hmm.
because there's just too much of chatter going on and it's not mine. Half the time, it's not mine. It's just a playback of what other people are telling me as well. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's really good to like zen out for a while and clear the landscape. So the words that you use is very important. So just a recap, phenomenal coping skills, having, that's all it is. It's just a bad day, you know. So these two are very fundamental on what we're going through today.
Right. Right. But saying that it's a bad day, that's all. Doesn't the bad word hold negative connotations? Doesn't the brain pick up on the bad?
Yeah, it does, but then it is just a bad day. I'm just having a bad day. It's the whole sentence in that sense because you get up in the morning, suddenly you meet an accident, and then you go to the office and the boss is it's just a bad day. That's all it is. There are bad things that happen, and it's true. So you're not denying what's really happening. It is true.
Mhm.
I had a bad day today, and I want to sit down and just veg out in front of the TV for 1 hour and go to bed, and then I'll deal with whatever I have to deal with tomorrow. Because you
Right.
know why? You don't want to also have this thing where you bypass reality and not deal with all the issues that's on the table. And
Right.
that's another bad thing because some people just sweep it under the carpet and go, it's not there, it's not there. And then it
Mhm.
implodes, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So sometimes, yeah, life does get a bit tricky. Things come
Mhm.
into our way, but you got to tell yourself it's a bad day. And some people have a bad year, a bad month. Things happen, but we all have phenomenal coping skills. And when we remind ourselves that, we are able to know that we have the skill set to cope with whatever comes our way.
Yeah. This year is a perfect example of being a bad year and still people having phenomenal coping skills. It's a perfect example.
Yeah, and some people are thriving. They don't even say it's a bad year. They're like, they see the opportunity in a crisis, and the Chinese character of a crisis, when you look at that character, says opportunity. So some people are like, they're really, I don't know, thriving in this time. So, while for some people it's bad, some people are just saying it's an awesome year as well. And I feel, happy for them.
Yeah, right. When you were talking right now, yeah, I picked up on
Mm,
regressing. So is that something like hypnosis? I mean,
yeah,
going into hypnotherapy.
yeah, yeah, it is. So basically, a lot of people freak out. They go, "Oh my God, hypnotherapy! Are you gonna actually like do something against my will?" And I'm like, "Gee, if I could, that'd be awesome. I'll be getting cars and checks for $1 million." But sadly, that's not what it is. Actually, hypnotherapy is part of RTT, and what really happens is that you're quieting down the conscious mind so that you can access that subconscious mind, that belief, that picture, that image that you've picked up at a very young age. So we normally go back, and it's actually the client, you actually go back. So I'll ask you, when did you pick up this belief or a picture or something that's got all to do with the belief that you feel that you're not lovable enough or you're
Mm,
not smart enough? And then the client will just go, "Oh, yeah, when I was 5 years old, now I can remember my mother scolded me and beat my hand because I couldn't say my ABC. So the
mm,
client will actually pull back out those files, that memory files themselves. But
right.
you're very awake. You actually know what's going around you. You can actually hear people walking past, or the door closing, or a dog barking, and all that. And you will not be able to do, or I will not be able to make you do something against your free will
That,
under hypnosis. Yeah, because it's just basically you going back and pulling out something from your subconscious memory file.
right. That's fascinating. So you offer online sessions, or are they one to one? How do you?
One to one on Zoom
Mm,
for most clients, because they just find it more comfortable being in their own homes, doing a session.
mm.
Although they must make sure that they are, comfortable and there's no interruption.
Right. So exactly what do you offer, and where can people reach you, and
Uh,
when should they contact you with what issues? I know you've already spoken about it, but just as an overview.
okay,
Yeah.
so I have a Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Adelina official. That's where can find me and book a session through there and send me through messenger or email that you want to work with me.
Right.
And basically, I offer two things, either RTT. So we're going to go back to something that you picked up in this lifetime, when you were a young child,
Mm,
perhaps, something that happened that caused you to make a belief that's affecting your life today.
right.
The other one that I offer is private sessions for family constellation to find out whether there are any entanglements, within the family, whether you're taking on a burden for somebody unconsciously as well. And that's a whole different modality to be discussed, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's a very, very powerful modality. And, my teacher said that basically almost everyone should at least, do one family constellation in their lifetime to see the hidden dynamics that's there. And I
Right.
think she's absolutely spot on. So those two, and it can be done via Zoom or online Skype.
Yeah. Do you combine the two ever in your sessions, or you just do one
Um,
separately,
at
one?
this point in time, no, because I find that at this point in time, it's really good to keep it separate to find out really what elements are at play here. Is it your subconscious mind, or is it something to do with your family dynamics per se?
Mm, right.
So yeah, it's better to keep it separate at this point in time. But people come to me for all sorts of things. There's young ladies who are just married, and they feel this huge fear about moving forward in life. I'm
Right.
getting a lot of people coming to me nowadays for fear. What's going to happen with my life? How am I going to move forward? So the word is fear. It's not even stress or anxiety. And I can imagine. Yeah.
It's interesting because you started our conversation with your fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still working. It's still your healing process, I guess. That there's still layers being peeled off your fear, maybe.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
I think what happens is now is like, because I went through that fear, I'm able to sort of like understand or resonate with someone when they come with that fear.
Mm,
And I think also this year, people are really worried about what's going to happen with their life. So there's this maybe underlining tone of fear and uncertainty as well. And it's bringing to surface their own fears about life. I don't know. So there's fear, there's a lot of complex trauma that's coming, and a lot more kids that are coming for sessions as well. Parents, trying to look into things for their children.
right. Right. Amazing. Okay, so Adelina, before we say goodbye to our viewers, is there anything lastly want to add, or you want to say any message for our viewers? You've already shared a lot.
I think, the whole concept of life by design is possible. And whatever you tell your mind that you want, in a very concise and clear manner you can get.
Hmm.
Just that you have to sit down and invest in your landscape. It's like having this piece of land here,
Hmm.
and whatever you plant that seed and how you harvest everything that you put in there, think
Right.
of it that way. So you are the engineer and the designer of your life. And nobody can take that away from you, and nobody can do that job for you. So you can't farm it out. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really, really important that you sit down and ask yourself, what do I really want?
Hmm.
You know, take back that ownership and yeah, start working on it if that's what somebody wants to do and they want to create a change in their life. It's very doable.
Thank you so much.
You're
That's
most welcome. Thanks,
perfect.
Masuma.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adelina. Before we say goodbye to Adelina, I just would like to tell my viewers that please subscribe to We Now Hub. I'm always bringing some amazing guests like Adelina every week. I try my best, but I could do with your support. So please do subscribe, do share, do like, and that's all. So, you just help me to do more of this. And Adelina, once more, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great having you.
Thanks, Mas. Take care.
Okay. Yeah, bye everybody. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.